Dear Lord, we come before you and we thank you for this day. We thank you for allowing us to be here. I ask that you would just lead and guide and direct us as we try to make good decisions, and please be with each person here. And I ask that everything that be done today be done for your glory, and I ask all these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Rex Jordan.
Here.
Leo Smith.
Here.
Bill England. Keith Austin.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Joe Burke.
Ani.
Sean Crittenden.
Here.
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Dan Duncan.
Ani.
Wanda Hatfield.
Ani.
Dick Way.
Here.
Mike Shambaugh. Mary Bakershaw.
Ani.
Denise Taylor.
Here.
Victoria Vesquez.
Ani.
David Wassenstead. Ryan Warren.
Ani.
We have a forum.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from May the 13th.
Make a motion they be approved. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Reports. Management of Resources, Mr. David Moore.
Good afternoon. You have our report. Any questions? I'll try to answer them. We've had a pretty busy month last month with all the tornadoes, flooding, and all that. We've just been trying to help everybody we can. So we may be behind on a few little things, but we'll catch up. So.
Any questions for David?
David, I have one. David, in the last year or so, I have actually seen a Cherokee flag fall at an event. And then recently at the medical school groundbreaking, I saw the signs fall. Is there any way you can take like a bucket of cement or something and put pipes in it to put them down so they don't blow over at these events?
Well, we'll try to figure out something. The signs weren't ours. They were the architects, but yeah. We'll try to figure out some better way for those. But the flags, we try to sandbag, but
Sandbag, I'm thinking of a bucket of concrete with a pipe in it, that they can go down and fit in that. So I think it was, I about flipped when we lost, our flag fell over. I can't remember where we were at that, but it's happened. And anyway, anything you can do
yeah, we'll try to figure
prevent
out a
that,
better way
I think
to
all
make
of
it.
us would be very grateful.
Yep, we can do that.
Any other questions?
Dave, you said you've been busy. What can natural resources do for citizens that are impacted by the flood?
We've just been working with emergency management. Mainly it's debris removal right off the bat so that they can get in. And then we've been kind of acting as a ground resource for the marshals and stuff to moving water around different areas and trying to take away some of the little stuff that so they can free up and go help people, rescues and stuff. We actually got donated foods even involved with us. They took water to their sites. That way, when the fire department in that area needed water, instead of waiting on us to bring it up from here, they could go straight to there and get some water. So we're trying to learn on every event. This one was a big one, so hopefully we can take away some ideas and stuff on this one.
So if a Cherokee citizen has a problem, should I refer them to natural resources or through emergency management? And they
yes.
will
Yeah,
go here and there.
yeah, exactly.
Quick example, I got a couple of constituents have a private bridge washed out. It's a wooden bridge and they're gone.
Yeah.
Is natural resources equipped to help with that at all?
That's all have to be run through emergency management. When it's individual's property, it's hard for us to do anything, but if it's under emergency situations, through emergency management, there's a lot of stuff we can do. But that one, they'll probably have to get funds. Hopefully, they were in one of the counties that was declared. And that's something else we've been working on. We did a training last week to help our guys in the field because they know the land, they know all the communities and stuff. Some of these counties that weren't declared, we're going out and doing preliminary assessments, trying to get those counties pulled in and declared natural disasters where they can get the funding. So there's a lot of other things that everybody, not just us, everybody at the nation is doing, trying to help and trying to do it to where we don't mess up funding for anybody, for them or us. So.
Councilor Donovan, I think I have a solution for yours and all.
Okay. Right, great, thank you. So Muskogee is declared, Muskogee County. So once you're declared, what does that make that county eligible? What types of funding resources are there?
Federal funds, that's about as far as I can get you, but it does, it'll, and it's loans, more or less, there's low loans and stuff, I mean, it's not like a handout. But, that's basically, I mean, they can get low interest loans, I do know that.
Might comment that FEMA, suppose, it's been said it's the answer, but their average grant or award is $3,000 with a maximum of $30,000.
Yeah.
So citizens had their whole house wiped out.
Right,
$30,000 they go there.
Yeah.
So
No, it
FEMA's
won't.
hardly
Yeah.
take care of it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a bad deal. It is. I've seen the 86 one, now this one, but I didn't see the 43 or 42 one, no. It's devastating. We went down to Weber's and also to Moffett. I mean, the work's just now starting.
Right.
You know, the rescues and all that, that was the easy part, really. People are overwhelmed, it's, the damage is unreal, unless you go down there and look at it and walk in on it. I mean, it's bad.
Thank you, Chair.
Dave, I know I have asked about our pine trees probably for the last 6, 7 years, and they're still standing, still thick as they can be. Where are we, and who can tell us what we need to do or what needs to be done?
We're working on it. We've
I
met
know,
with
I've
government.
been asking for this for 6 years.
I've only been over about 6 or 7 months now, and we've worked with the government. We got an extension because they were fixing to go in there and do it the wrong way, and we weren't going to get funding for it. So we backed up. We're doing it the right way. We're working with the government on it, and we had a big meeting with everybody.
What were they gonna do that he didn't agree with?
They were just going to go in there and start pay somebody to defend them and not do there was some environmental stuff that needed to be done and some rules that had to be followed. You can't just go in there and just start wiping them out without following all the procedures just right to get your money back. But we got it, and we got an extension, and we're waiting for kind of the fall, not quite all the way into fall, but right around fall to start.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we got a plan in place, and we're gonna get it done.
So what are we gonna do with the logs that they thinned? Do you know yet?
Some of them will be, the smaller ones will just be mulched up, and then some of them will be sold. Yeah, so it's kind of a double deal. Yeah.
Good deal, sound like
Yeah.
we're moving.
No, we really are. We had a hustle to get the extension, and then we met with USDA and, who else did we meet with? Yeah, BIA, all in the same room. Everybody worked together and it went well.
Good deal. All right, thank you. Thanks, sir.
Any other questions? You're doing good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Real Estate Services, Ms. Ginger Brown Reeves.
Good afternoon. You have a copy of my report. If you have any questions, I will be happy to address them.
Any questions for Ginger? Harley?
When do we expect the TAMs to be completed?
I'm hoping by the end of December, or end of the year in December. The only reason we took like 2 months off, they were remodeling the BIA.
Yeah, I saw your report.
Right, right. So hopefully we'll have everything in by that time.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Environmental Programs, Mr. Tom Elkins.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Tom.
You have our copy of our report, I hope, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to get Ginger to answer.
Any questions for Tom?
Wow.
You're doing a really good job. Keep it up.
All right. Tell my boss that.
Hey, Dave. Secretary of Natural Resources, Ms. Sarah Hill.
You guys make me more nervous when you're this easygoing with all the people in front of me.
That's waiting on you.
That's what I think. We had a the first thing, of course, has been the flooding. Just the tremendous, there's the emergency management and the marshal service and saving lives and saving property is the first order of business, but the environmental, there's going to be lots of environmental consequences to all of this. There's a lot of stuff that gets washed into the river when we have flooding like this, and I've gotten lots of reports from several council members of people having concerns about all kinds of things getting swept up in the floodwater, and it contributes to the pollution issues that we already have. So there's on a lot of things like that, situations like that, there's very little that we can do about it until the water gets back to normal and we can do some testing and see what the water looks like, and it'll impact the lakes, and it's a huge issue. It reinvigorates my desire to do something about climate change, because these things are all connected. Increasing flooding and increasing droughts and all those things are consequences of climate change. And so I think it reminds me how important it is that we continue to deal with not just the immediate problems that we have, but the larger problems that we have. We had a really good meeting with the medicine keepers this last week, and it was worth the meeting for the food alone, which was really outstanding. They have a cohort of young people that have been working with the medicine keepers and learning from them, and they got together and they ground up some of the white eagle corn that we grew at the native plant garden and made cornbread out of it and lots of other things. We had hominy and squirrel meat. All of it was delicious, and it had just a really good time. Just talking to them and learning more about what their priorities are. I always try to listen in those meetings, what it is, the priorities that they have. They have knowledge that I don't have, and they have the capacity to help Cherokee Nation make better decisions than we could make on our own. So it was a very good meeting. They're really encouraged. There's a piece of property we call CMS 83, which the medicine keepers have identified as a piece of property that's it's not useful for development, but it is useful for their purposes. It has a lot of the plants and things that they're particularly interested in. They asked us, we took the medicine keepers down there I think it was in the winter, to have a look at the property. They thought that it met their needs, and now we're working on getting access for them into the property. They wanted the road built by hand. They didn't want heavy equipment out there to the extent that could be done. So Pat Gwynn, Nancy Ratcliffe, and Kevin Doherty have been building that road by hand, and it's almost complete. There were 2 sections of it that were going to need a little bit of dozer help. They just couldn't be avoided, and we talked to them about that, and they agreed that would be appropriate in that location. So Natural Resources just jumped right on it and agreed to come and help us with that little bit of dozer work that we're going to need. So we hope to have that complete soon. And that will be a good place for them to meet and to work with the cohort of young people that they have selected. They have that National Science Foundation grant that we've talked about before. And so I think that it is one of those things that really matters. There's lots of things we do at Cherokee Nation dealing with the immediate problems that we have, but this is the stuff that, to me, that really matters in terms of the long-term survival of the Cherokee Nation as we understand Cherokee Nation, what we understand it to be. So I'm really pleased with that. And it's all because of the work of the medicine keepers and the cohort of young people that are working with them. I'm glad that they let me come and eat at their lunches, mostly. But the round 2 of the Volkswagen settlement is here. We got about $800,000 for round 1, and now because they delayed it so long, round 2 is right upon us. So we hope to get at least that much, if not a little bit more, in round 2 of Volkswagen. And so all of that money will go to help build more of this electric charging infrastructure that we've got to start on here at the complex. We've got a lot more sites planned, so that will help us do our bit to try to help with this climate change situation that is our collective and global catastrophe that we're dealing with. I'm speaking at the Tribal Pollinator Program. They have a conference tomorrow of tribal entities that are working to protect pollinators. The bumblebee was recently listed as an endangered species. All of the pollinators are in really desperate shape, and the tribes in Oklahoma have really shown a lot of leadership. Cherokee Nation has done a lot of pollinator work sort of on our own, under our own grants, but we're really reaching out more aggressively to the other tribes now to sort of increase the power of the work that we do. And so they invited me to come speak at their program tomorrow, and I'm going to do that and talk about the work that we do here. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has put forward new rules on eagle feathers, which would permit non-Indians who hold sincere religious beliefs to possess eagle feathers. And they have asked for comment on that. I know we've drafted a comment. I've kicked it up to Government Relations. I'll be sure that a copy of that goes out to the Tribal Council. Our position has been that allowing non-Indians to possess eagle feathers prohibits Indians, federally recognized Indians, from having access to the feathers, which are already difficult to get a hold of. If you put in a request for feathers from the service, you know how long it can take to get those feathers. And it will also creates an opportunity for more of that black market trading that already goes on. I think that will be increased in a world where non-Indians don't have to have permits. So we've prepared some comments on that. And we had several tribal citizens contact us requesting us to take a position on that. So I'll be sure to circulate that. I've been continuing to meet with the Secretary of Energy and the Environment on the Illinois River. This is something that he has really hit the ground running on and is a priority of his. So we're continuing to have those meetings. Several of you may have seen that there were household hazardous waste events in your communities and boxes for people to collect, for communities collect opioids. Those were donated. And so we had, those have now been, I think there's just one outstanding maybe right now that still needs to be delivered. And then finally, we got from Sequoia Fuels, I told you that we were working on getting part of our money back on that we thought there was a source of funding that could help reimburse the nation for some of the money that we put into it. We should have that funding by July 31st, and it will be between, we think between $400,000 and $500,000. So that was a good investment, and it's good to get some of that money returned to us. And the state of Oklahoma has worked with us to help access this funding, because we wouldn't have been able to access it on our own. So that speaks to the teamwork that we were able to utilize there. You know, the state didn't have the money when it was needed, but the Cherokee Nation and the Tribal Council were able to provide that funding. And now we're able to use those relationships to get some of that money paid back to us so that we can put that back into other programs. So I think those are sort of the highlights of the last month, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions if I can.
Yes, Sarah, thank you. Sarah, the medicine keepers, I understand, I know some of them, but as a group of people, Cherokee citizens, are they affiliated with any department specifically in Cherokee Nation, or are they their own entity? For instance, if I was interested in having some possibly come and give a program about ways to heal with native plants and natural things, say at our clinic in Bonita or our housing, we have elders that are really interested. I'm interested in how can we get healing without pharmaceuticals.
They are their own entity, so they operate under their own charter and they make their own decisions about how they want to operate. Pat is their sort of liaison to Cherokee Nation, and he'll tell you that he's their gopher, make sure that they have lunch and a place to meet, and those sorts of things. But so if you contact Pat, he can work with them to get to see if any of the medicine keepers would be interested in doing a speaking engagement like that. But what they do is entirely up to them.
Right. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way that works, right?
Thank you very much. Thanks.
And Sarah, chicken update?
Chicken update. How did I forget the chicken update? So the moratorium was lifted on May 31st, so which is what I had anticipated after the conversations that I had with them. The only sort of good news I have to report on that front is that we've been having conversations with a broad conversation, including the USDA through the NRCS. Gary O'Neill is the state conservationist, and then Trey Lamb from the Oklahoma Conservation Commission, all these different lettered groups that all of them deal with ag and conservation. And so we think that we have identified a significant grant opportunity that Oklahoma and Cherokee Nation could potentially partner on to bring hundreds of thousands of dollars back to some of these heavily impacted communities, because I think that there's, one of the things that we have to think about is what do we do with these communities that have already suffered, and how do we make their lives better? How can we improve the lives of Cherokee citizens who are already impacted? And one of the ways to do that would be to use some of this, be able to invest in that community on things like real windbreaks that actually do the job that they're supposed to do. So that conversation is going very well. I'm supposed to meet with them again next week, and the grant application the grant has been posted, which is all we were waiting on to work on that grant application. There's a lot of interest from Oklahoma on that, and a lot of interest on my side, of course, on that, and keeping that sort of targeted on these communities that we know have been most heavily impacted. So that is moving forward and looks to be a good way to maybe to do some real improvement and mitigation on the ground. The larger problem, I think, is going to continue to take legislative pressure, and the tribe is going to have to, we're going to have a long conversation on the next legislative session in Oklahoma about what the best thing to do is. So there's definitely going to have to be some retooling of that, since the new Secretary of Agriculture has not been inclined to talk about extending the moratorium in those places where it needs to be extended.
I had a good conversation with a gentleman last night from Adair County, and he had several chicken houses directly across from his house, and he said for the first time in his life he's developed breathing problems. Said he
and it's not anywhere else except when he gets home, he said, and then it happens. So, you know, I didn't know him from Adam, so, you know, he was telling me this thing, so I think we're going to start seeing the effects a little bit on people, and hopefully, I don't know, we may have to think outside the box too on how we approach this. We have to switch gears. I know you have. It's just, I mean, I know it's difficult, and legislators, you can't control what they do, but gosh, I just hope they don't do any more in any district we have, but I know they are, obviously, but gosh, my district can't take any more.
No,
I mean, we can't.
I agree, and I do think it's time to, I mean, I feel like we've made some good progress on it. I think that this is the time where people tend to say, well, you know, this is, if we do get investment and we have a moratorium, we have to take that, and you can't ever sleep at all. You have to really keep the pressure on all of these situations. So I think that now is the time to continue to engage and let them know that we're not going away. This problem isn't going away until we have real guarantees that our communities, like the one that you're in, that cannot take any more of this, don't have to deal with it. So I don't think that, there's no part of me that thinks this is done. I think that this is just a midpoint of what's going to be, it has been a very long fight against the influx of these kinds of poultry production. I mean, it's another part of what's been a long battle.
Thank you.
Harley.
Yeah, Sarah, this track 83, where is it located and how many acres of it?
Oh, great questions for Pat. It's in Adair County.
Okay.
It's near the Arkansas border. Kanan may know.
It's over Oak Ridge area.
Oh, okay.
700 acres.
Yeah.
Was that right, Joel?
Yeah. The housing authority bought about 60 acres right there on the Arkansas line. We called it Lackey property probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it sits right back in behind that.
Okay. Yeah, I know about where it is. Thanks, sir. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, ma'am.
What was on the barges that sunk? I've heard two different things. And
Well, I know as much as anybody knows. I only know, as I understand it, it was fertilizer is what was on those barges.
It was fertilizer, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is, of course.
Not that it matters, it's still in the water.
Right. I mean, the Arkansas
It does matter,
is already, you know, it had a lot of water quality challenges before all of this happened. So that certainly isn't going to help that situation at all.
Well, I felt like that you would know that since you're taking care of our environment. And speaking of, Mr. Shambach, it's a little bit different, but you were talking about this gentleman from Adair County with the breathing issues from the chicken houses, and I had a cousin die. It's been in the past 6 months, and he worked for Tyson for years, and he had a brain issue. It wasn't cancer, but anyway, and I've heard several other gentlemen that worked in the same industry as he did with Tyson, chicken houses, that are having issues. So there, you know, it is a real problem. And I don't know at the time if they were, you know, they protected themselves. I don't know. I have had a chance to talk to my cousin's wife to see, you know, he just had this, they just diagnosed him with, you know, a brain disorder, and consequently he died from that. But I know there are many issues, and there are several more gentlemen that are from Adair County that I know about that have those issues. So it is a real, you know, we know it's a real problem.
Right. The other things that we're working on in that regard is a water monitoring and air monitoring plan for these most heavily impacted communities. And so those are things that that you may see coming from this office in the near future. It's a little bit of an investment to do that kind of work, but I think it's an investment that will help us understand, because of course the argument is always, well, this gentleman is having breathing problems for the first time in his life. And if you are making these allegations, the first thing that you're going to say, if you're the company, is, well, how can you connect that? Maybe maybe it could be anything. Maybe it's the pollen. Who knows what's causing this guy's breathing issues? Those are the sorts of things that get said, right? And the only way to combat that is to have information about, well, we know that there's this increase in this community of these particulates or whatever the issues might be. So knowledge is power. That way it helps us really, narrow our focus down on what are the issues that are really causing problems, and then what can we do about them. So I think air monitoring and water quality monitoring in those communities is going to be pretty important.
He worked in Arkansas, and I'm not sure exactly, probably Springdale area, but nonetheless, you know, that borders, you know, Oklahoma and anyway.
It's an issue throughout this whole region. It's not just Oklahoma, it's Oklahoma and Arkansas, and Kansas for that matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Just a real quick follow-up. So with the air quality situation, are you going to, if you find out where they're going to do new chicken houses, is there any way that you could go and maybe do the air quality samples before they're built? And then a time later, after they're built and after they're running, then can you go back and take it again? I mean, kind of like the wells, because, you know, they were doing the wells, and then after the chicken house, they were going to do them again after the chicken houses ran to see the effects, if there was any effects on the well, quality of the water. Is there any way that, you know, that may be something you can do with the air, is if you know there's one coming in, can we go take air samples there, and then as it gets going, and we can take them again? Has that been thought of?
It has been thought of, and fortunately, smarter people than me are better at determining when you're sampling an air shed, you know, where the air comes from, and trying to get a good look, like a comprehensive look at that air shed takes expertise beyond mine. It takes people that really understand that scientific discipline. So I think that would be a good conversation to have with them, and then I can follow up with you maybe later about that, because those are more detailed scientific questions that lawyers are not qualified to answer.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah. Say this is gonna be a softball, big old yellow one.
Yes.
But, you know, with the flooding and the environmental issues that we face, and in our area, there's some things that's been going on, you know, just trying to keep the landfill, you know, people around them healthy and everything. But the Cherokee Nation in these times, they're gonna be having their ears perked up on about anything and any idea that could possibly help the environment. Softball.
Right.
Because, you know, there's people with ideas. We're all hearing about different ideas and things, but we're going to be taking every one of those serious, aren't we?
That's always the case. I mean,
I know that.
that's absolutely true, especially, I mean, in Adair County, anywhere that's the case. If there are concerns or people have ideas, I mean, I certainly don't think I have the market cornered on ideas. I need all the ideas I can ever get, so I'm happy to talk about it.
So your folks and your resources, if somebody has something, you'll be all ready to hear them out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Don't you think the way that water was running, that fertilizer was the least of the problem?
Yeah, there were,
It's probably Little Rock by now.
yeah, I mean, all of it, you know, is a problem. There's all kinds of issues I've heard from different people at different times, the concerns about anything people put on their roads, on their lawns, any place, all of this construction sites, all of this stuff, cars, the oil from the cars, all of that stuff ends up into the watershed and has the potential to create real problems. The Arkansas isn't a great source of drinking water anyway, which is, I mean, at least not where we're at. It's not a good source of drinking water. But the impacts, it goes right back into the land, and so it's all connected. So all these things that are going on are going to have the potential to cause issues down the road. But that's true in any flooding event. This was a really bad flooding event. Weber's Falls, it's just terrible. I feel really, I mean, they just have so much work to do down there that I know just getting everyone's property and all of that stuff put back together is usually people's first priority after something like this.
Any other questions? Thank you. Done a good job.
All right, thank you.
Old business done, new business none, announcements. The next meeting will be July the 15th at 2 o'clock. This meeting adjourned.
Make motion.
Got a motion, second. All in favor?